Welcome to Dad's DeFi Space. I'm Kevin, and I'm so grateful that you've taken a little bit of time out of your day to spend it with me, your guide to all things crypto and DeFi. Because you do know that markets are noisy, but here at Dad's DeFi Space, I favor trading with clarity. So I'm Kevin, a father, an investor, and a full-time DeFi learner. And this is Dad's DeFi Space. I document all my trades, my exit, and my mid-trade pivots in real time. And if you want that full process as it happens, the Telegram's free. And if you are trading, check out our link for Layer Bank, 15% fee discounts, and full access to my Premium Group where you get all my trade setups. So let's get into today's video. So it's Monday, January 5th, 2026, and the crypto market is obviously sitting at a pressure point today. So while traders are as traders are watching Bitcoin pretty much flirt with 100K, not really, we're about halfway there, the real storm is forming off of the charts. Look, there was some geopolitical flashpoints at the end of last week. Real estate and business are starting to form cracks, and look, risky assets, I believe they could be walking a tightrope, even though the market turned extremely bullish today. So today we're going to break down some of those macro shockwaves, what it means for Bitcoin, and later in the video, we're going to take a look at some of my trades and bot setups. And if you stay around, we may even check out some alpha on ZORA. So look, Venezuela has a political crisis going on, and it has intensified, right? Just a few days ago, U.S. invaded Venezuela, capturing Maduro and his wife. They are now in New York City facing drug trafficking and narco-terrorism charges. Now, when this happened, it was a full-on assault by the U.S. Special Forces and Air Force. And you're probably wondering, why are we talking about war and international politics and Venezuela? It's because this affects the markets. Now, I thought this actually would cause Bitcoin to crash, but that is not what happened. As soon as Trump started talking like we want some of that Venezuelan oil, the market took off. And if you take a look at my screen, you can see it even affected some of our favorite altcoins this week. Now, look, historically, geopolitical stress leads to risk-off sentiment as investors pull capital from speculative assets and small-cap stocks. But this doesn't mean that crypto will crash, because today it's actually looked pretty good. And here in a minute, we're going to actually look at some charts, check all this out. But let's understand the cycles, right? Because there's a lot of people out there, the 4-year cycle, is it dead? Is it over? Will it change? Look, nobody knows. But one thing I do know is we are seeing the tail end of the commercial real estate and business cycle. These cycles usually end with a lot of mayhem, a lot of destruction. Think Great Depression, Great Recession, financial crises, etc. Right? Now, usually when the real estate market tanks, there's a cascading effect, usually on institutional portfolios. Eventually, this begins to affect the stock market and likewise crypto. What usually we see go first is the crypto market, then real estate, and then stocks, in that order. Now, the translation, look, even if Bitcoin remains strong right now, alts could lag or could turn risk off very quickly. Capital can rotate defensively. I actually believe, not financial advice, of course, that we are in the mood for a bounce, but the bull market is not back in play, at least not yet. For me to really believe that the bull market hasn't ended, I would need to see a reclaim of both the 50-week moving average, and the bull market support band. I have not seen either of those yet, but we'll take a look at that in a minute when we look at the charts. Now, look, let's take a look at the general crypto market sentiment. What's crazy is today is the first day since October that we have gone neutral in the fear and greed index, right? We are neutral at 42 today. That is crazy. So we've taken a huge pump from deep fear now back into the neutral range. Excuse me. On top of that, you can see that we have gone back into basically Bitcoin season at altcoin season index sitting at 24. Crypto market cap has blown up over the last 48 hours. We're now back above $3.2 trillion. And the crypto ETF flows are massively in the positive. But if you look back, you can see we've been heavily in the negative since December 14th. Now, there's a lot of momentum maxed out across many, many different charts, and I want to talk about some of my theses. But before we get to that part of the video, I want to take a moment to let you know about DADSDEFISPACE. Check out all of our free educational articles, tutorials, and setups at DADSDEFISPACE. That is our Web 2 address. You can also check us out at Web 3 on our Substack on Paragraph, links in the description. And then, of course, you can check out our content on ZORA, X, and so many other things out there. But look, let's take a look at some of the other aspects of the market right now. For example, well, altcoins are on fire. Virtual up 22% on the day. Pendle 5.7, Render 12.3. A lot of times this kind of shows you what may or may not run in the future. Sway up 11.6, although they were in a serious downtrend just recently. And here a little bit later in the video, we'll look at some of my setups. But I'm telling you right now, I am still short, and this is the reason why. If you take a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, you can see, even if I zoom in a little bit closer here, there's a nice little set of liquidity at around, what is that, 93.2. And hold on one second. I want to make sure this is not on the 24-hour. I want the 1 week. So this will make a little more sense, okay? So on the 1 week liquidation heat map, I mean, we have been absolutely on fire. The beauty is most of the shorts at this point have been liquidated out of the market, so we don't have to worry about so much there. But if I go up on the monthly, you can see this huge liquidity zone. If we were to get back down below $91,000, you would look at $144 million worth of crypto liquidations, which, by the way, that's quite a bit. And then also we have one here of around 100 million at 99.7, right? And then way down here, you have another one around 86. So you can see our range, and we are way above it right now. We're going to come back down and grab this liquidity, right? So I'll be taking a ton of profits on my shorts, around $91,000, give or take. And then a lot of it I'm going to try to ride down, because I can see us re-entering this zone right here, which is right around 86K, which then I would probably start inching back into a Bitcoin long position, since we're not in one right now. So a lot of the things I like to look at when I'm trying to determine my positioning in the market are the Bitcoin liquidation heat maps, of course, the price charts, which we're going to look at in just a minute, and certain indicators that I've talked about many times on this channel. But let's take a look at some news before we look at the charts, since we're streaming. Ethereum has reported a new record high in developer activity. We are more bullish on ETH right now in the cycle than Bitcoin, although we are cycling out of most of our altcoin positions. We have deleveraged the majority of our long loans at this point, and it's kind of like setting up for the bear market vibes. So why ETH? I actually think ETH is going to be the choice of institutions. That's going to bring more liquidity onto Ethereum, which is obviously going to pump some of the meme coins, utility tokens, while we're bullish on things like Arrow, Undo, and even Aether. Although we are trimming positions, especially with this pump. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we shouldn't do in the market. Now, you're living under a bridge if you have not heard of Tom Lee. Tom Lee is the Fundstrat co-founder and also the BitMine chair. It is an Ethereum DAT, digital asset treasury company, and he calls for Bitcoin to hit a new record in January, even though he warns of a volatile 2026. This guy is like the ultimate permanent bull, and I can be very bullish at times, but I have found that being that bullish actually has led me down the wrong path more than once. And I want to make sure that these guys out there, it benefits them to be bullish. It doesn't necessarily benefit you that they are bullish. And I stress that if that is you, you should be searching out content, education, and analysis that is, in a sense, the opposite of what your thesis is. Because you always need to be looking at not just your side, but the other side of the story when making decisions about the market. Now, that brings us to Bitcoin. Now, if you take a look at the current Bitcoin chart, right, you should be able to see that we have most handedly gotten above our battle zone. And right now, if I go down to a lower time frame chart, like the 4-hour, Bitcoin is testing a key resistance area around 93.8 all the way up to 94.5. Now, what's happening is if you look, the stochastic RSI is above 70. We're pretty maxed out right now. This area is historically reactive, and a rejection from this area could unwind our recent rally, especially with some of the macro headwinds that are present, the end of the business cycle. Who knows? But while we're talking about Bitcoin, I wanted to go back, and I've talked about this before. I'm going to go on the weekly chart to talk about last market cycle. Now, this is last market cycle right here. You can see our first top in April and our second top in November, and then the beginning of the bear market. Now, we kind of leveled out where the pump, the second pump that occurred, the second all-time high, we kind of leveled out down and began to chop around that base range, which basically was between $30,000 and $40,000, and we did that for the majority of the summer. And then what had happened, we get this massive pump starting around, what was that, July? No, excuse me, not July. I meant January of 2022, and we rode it all the way up to this lower high in March of 2022. Now, maybe very much so we are doing something like that right now. Now, when did we hit the low right here? January, high in March. Maybe we're going to begin the beginning of a little run. There's a lot of people who are going to say the bull market's back in style when this starts to occur, which may already be starting now. We don't know yet. Well, guess what? That's how I got wrecked last cycle, and if I only knew better. But if you're watching this channel, you will know better, because don't let them fool you. Now, what I want to do now is take the RSI off the chart and add in the death cross and the bull market support band. So what you're looking at now, you got the 50-week, the 200-week, and the bull market support band. Okay, and we're still looking at the previous cycle, but what do you see here? right? When we finally on the weekly broke below the bull market support band right here, we went down. When we broke below the bull market support band here, we went down, right? But here's the crazy part. Go on the monthly and you take a good look at this. Hold on, my chart's all messed up. What happened on the monthly when we broke below the bull market support band? You tell me. Yeah, we dropped all the way down that month into our battle zone, right? We are now fighting to get back up there. Now, the bull market support band on the monthly is sitting right at 100. And if we go to the weekly, you can see the 50 week sitting at 101, almost $102,000, which is right even with the bull market support band sitting between 99 and 102. It would not surprise me over the next quarter or so that we try to go back up here and test this. But I think we're going to shake out some of those longs that have been piling into the market again, going back to the heat map on the day because this pump is so recent. We'll go to the 3-day. A whole bunch of liquidation leverage around that 91,000 level. I think we might revisit it and wipe out all that liquidity. Bitcoin loves to go grab that and take care of those perp traders. And if you stay around, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can position ourselves to take advantage of this in the market when we look at some of our current trades. Now, next, I wanted to take a look at, wait, hold on a second. Before we take a look at Ethereum, I wanted to talk just a little bit more about this. If you are not good at technical analysis, those are two indicators you do need to know for Bitcoin, and that is the 50-week and the bull market support band, and then the 200-week. Because a couple things. Number one, bull market's usually over when we break below the 50-week, which we did right here, right? 200's way, way down here at around 57. Now, eventually during the bear market, Bitcoin tends to, well, it did honor the 200 right here. It did not honor it last cycle. So it wouldn't surprise me if we went below it again. But if we did, even with this heading back up, you're still looking at around a $60,000 to a $68,000 Bitcoin. So anywhere between 58 and 68 could literally be the bottom of the bear market. Now, moving on to Ethereum, right? Now, Ethereum, totally still within our trading range, which was between 28 and, well, the original one was 28 to 31, but the wider range was 3450 down to 3000. And we've gotten back above it. In fact, we are really close. The bull market support band is sitting at 3,380 for Ethereum. So this is one that I'm definitely like watching on the charts right now. Now, at the moment today, ETH is showing relative weakness to Bitcoin. So if Ethereum gets under, say, 3,200 and Bitcoin stalls or pulls back, Ethereum will get hit hard. Ethereum, though, is sitting about the same as Bitcoin right now, up about 2.8% on the day. Keeping an eye out here, because if we were to tap into this bull market support band around 33.75, I'm going to short the crap out of that. Although we got stopped out of an ETH short earlier today and took a nice little loss on that. You can't win them all with trading. But if you check out our free trading group at DADSDEFISPACE, or consider joining the Premium Group, all you got to do is join L Bank with our link in the description. 15% off your trading fees for life. That is a gift from me to you. But back to what we were talking about, Ethereum, right? This pump began around $2,500 with the base setting around $2,488, let's say. We could easily revisit that. I definitely think we're going to revisit this 2,800 range eventually, but we're just going to have to keep an eye on Ethereum. Now, Bitcoin dominance is on a slight downtrend. A slight downtrend on the weekly. sitting right around the bull market support band, trying to figure out what it wants to do. And we just don't know yet. So this is one we're just going to have to keep an eye on. And finally, the last chart I wanted to look at before we look at our trades is the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. As you can see, we are above our 0.031 range. We're back into the bull market support band. So as long as we don't have a breakdown from here, ETH Bitcoin is showing at least consolidation at this point, which could be good for altcoins, but we're just going to have to keep an eye on it. I actually think this could break down over the next week or so, maybe even sooner, but we're just going to have to keep an eye on the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. Now, the next thing I wanted to look at, since we're talking market today, is some of DADSDEFISPACE's current trade setups, right? And we're going to start by taking a look at my L Bank account. Now, you can see both trades down here. We have a ZORA short 20x sitting with about a 70% profit and an unrealized gain of $129. And then we have a sold short that we're down a little bit on. It's negative 17%, 136. That is a 20x trade. Now, first, I wanted to bring up Solana. You're looking at the Solana chart, looking super, super bullish right now. Volume on the 4-hour, though, is on a downtrend. If you see price going up, volume going down, that's usually not a good sign. Again, we're going to have to keep an eye on that. It may change. On the 1 hour, we're still looking kind of bullish, although it's looking like it's trying to consolidate right here on the upper moving average. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about our trade. Now, we took this Solana trade around 134, and we have been adding to it as price has increased. Solana right now is sitting at 138.60, and the cash that we have left over will help to fund a little bit more of this trade. I don't want to add any more capital at this point because this trade is already looking at 114 Solana, so it's a pretty large Solana trade. We'll probably de-risk if the trade goes down any bit at all. Now, do understand that these trades I'm showing you are kind of like catching falling knives, so these are not for the faint of heart, and if you're not used to trading, I probably right now would stay out of the market. Although we are getting into the upper end of our range. Let me show you on the daily. With our upper resistance sitting at 144, just under 145. So as long as Solana stays below 145, I'm going to probably stay within this trade. But once we break there, I'm out. Maybe it's going to continue on to say 160 to 170, and I don't want to have a piece of that yet. But that is a pretty bullish setup for Solana, and I don't know if it is going to get all the way there that fast at this point. All right. Next, I wanted to take a look at my ZORA trade. Now, this one is set pretty good, but we've been playing around a lot on ZORA, so I know as we get close to 0.5 cents per ZORA, that we're at the upper end of our range, and we're probably going to bleed down. We're even below the breakout. Well, not anymore, but we were below the breakout. We're above the breakout now. Now, if I see ZORA gain resistance above 0.05, or excuse me, support above 0.05, I'm bullish, right? Now, this ZORA trade that we were looking at, is actually our best trade of the day. Our entry point was 0.0458. Look, ZORA is showing signs of exhaustion. Volume is slowly starting to tick down. Now, it has a lot lower liquidity to ZORA than to something like Bitcoin and ETH, so It's much, much more volatile. You got to be careful. I would not enter a trade like ZORA without some kind of stop loss setup. But I did want to share some of my current trades on Layer Bank. And then we got a couple over on Blowfin. But this one is a Bitcoin long. We took it at 93.7. So we're down a little bit on this one, but not too bad, around 6%. I don't think I really need to go much into this one here, and I'm having issues with my charts for some reason. But I did want to show you my trading bots. Now, these are both in the negative right now. We entered a little bit too early. We're minus 5% on our Bitcoin short bot and minus 6% on our Solana short bot. Now, these are grid bots that you can set up on Blowfin. My range of selling is 78,000 to 107, and this 116 on Solana to 157 on Solana. I love the grid bot strategy because it kind of does the dollar cost averaging in and out for you. And then hopefully you've analyzed the charts right now. Obviously, you're trying to set up to short. We entered a little too early. That's part of the game. Down a little bit at that point. Now, let's talk a little bit about safety and leverage trading. Never, ever in this environment take on more risk than you're willing to lose. If you don't know what you're doing, stick with isolated margin. Do not use cross margin because that's also using your cash and other positions. You could liquidate your entire account that way. Yes, we have done that in the past, being an idiot. So don't be an idiot. But look, these trades and setups can actually be beneficial. And for this, definitely to hedge in the market. We are so long in other positions. I've been taking a lot more shorts on my leverage trades recently, more as a hedge, right? Now, I wanted to talk about our Solana trade. Let me go back to the Solana chart real quick. That's Solana Ethereum, which this year, man, if you would have converted most of your sold to ETH, that would have been an excellent trade. If any of you all out there did that, kudos to you. But I wanted to take a look at Solana. Look, Solana is looking so bullish, and I wanted to show you why we started shorting Solana around 128. We got stopped out. We re-entered around 126. It's not shown on this chart, but just giving you an idea. It's hard to say. Maybe we go all the way back up to like 145 because, I mean, it looks bullish. But you notice something? Let me go to the 4 hour. Volume is slowly going down. You go to the 2 hour. Looks pretty good there. Volume went up on this selling. I do believe we're getting into the edge of the top of our range. So to me, 140 would be even better entry for a Solana short. But our entry was around 136. And the thesis is the Solana rally looks really extended, overbought. Resistance was between 138 and 140. I'll be taking profit at 128 and 123. But I also have a stop loss set a little bit above $140, and we're actually getting kind of close there. I may remove the stop. Or no, I'm not going to remove the stop. What I'm more than likely going to do is set my stop to only sell half the position and set an alert to reevaluate at that point. Those in my premium group already know this, but if you would like to be a part of the premium group, check out the Telegram link in the description. All you got to do is sign up for either L Bank or Blowfin Exchange. Links in the description. Lots of good deals, and it helps to support Dad's DeFi space. But our last trade that we closed earlier today was an Aero USDT trade. And the Aero USDT trade was closed once Aero got above, gosh, what was it? 161. We may re-enter, we may not, but right now Arrow's sitting at about 164, which is about where we were. The thesis is Arrow's stalling under 0.62. So what I'm more than likely going to do is I may enter another Arrow trade, but I'll set a limit order for 0.62. If it doesn't get there, it doesn't get there. And if it does, then we have a decent entry. Now, the first profit taking place would be 56 cents, second around 50 cents, but we'll go see, right? We'll go see. But we are still bullish on Arrow, even when we short. And whenever this one decides to go back down, it's going to go back down. But right now, it's kind of hard to tell where it's going to go. So I am out of this one, at least for now. But I hope that this live stream was beneficial. I hope you have learned a lot from it. And I hope that your trades and your portfolio positions are doing quite well. So remember, none of this is financial advice. I'm just a dad who likes to share what he's doing in the crypto and DeFi space. And I believe that this is some of the best ways to learn. Watching others, learning from others, asking questions. So if you have any, please leave them in the comments. Go find me on X or Zora or Base App, Farcaster. Join Dad's DeFi space or the free Telegram group. Shoot me a DM. They're always open. I'm here to help. So I hope each of you enjoy the last little bit of your Monday, get some rest tonight, and be ready to seize the day tomorrow. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.